So welcome to the opening to the press conference at the opening day of the MLA conference here in Ljubljana, Slovenia. I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping before we give the floor to our distinguished guests to speak. First of all, that this is being streamed on Facebook page of the Foreign Ministry of Republic of Slovenia. There is an interpretation into Slovene only, and that is for legal reasons. Tako da tisti, ki želite spremljati tukaj v sobi prevod v slovenščino, prosim, če se lahko vzamete slušalke. There will be short introductions now at the beginning. They will be in English. And then afterwards we will open the floor for the questions. If you would like to ask the question in your own language, you are free to ask it in your own language. And for all the media, there will be a broadcast quality available for you to use, so just get in touch with the Strategic Communication Service of the Foreign Ministry of Republic of Slovenia and we will provide you the link. And without that, I will now give the floor to the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Slovenia. Please, Madam Minister.
Thank you very much. Hvala lepa, samo stavek v slovenščini. Nadvse sem ponosna, da nam je uspelo zbrati udeležence iz 80 držav in vseh delov sveta na enem od najpomembnejših dogodkov, ki jih organiziramo v Sloveniji. Najpomembnejšem tudi zato, ker bomo dogovarjali konvencijo o pomembnem mednarodnem sodelovanju za pregon najhujših mednarodnih hudodelstev in zločinov. So, respected representatives of the media, it seems that this event is inspired by the leadership of women. So I'm happy to see so many female colleagues from different countries. Apart from that joke, but it's a serious one, I would like to say first, allow me to sincerely thank you to all the representatives of the media, to journalists who plan to follow the negotiations at the MLA diplomatic conference, which will take place for the next 2 weeks in Ljubljana, up to 26th of May, aimed at the adoption of the Convention on International Cooperation in the Investigation and Prosecution of Genocide, Crimes against Humanity, War Crimes and other international crimes, so the so-called MLA Convention. I'm extremely proud of the successful organization of this conference, diplomatic conference, and the extraordinary contribution and support of the 80 states and other participants from all over the world. I do hope that the active participation and support of all participants will lead to a successful outcome. We all aim to a successful outcome of the conference. The adoption of this convention would represent an important milestone in the development of international criminal law and the promotion of the fight against impunity. As part of the MLA core group of states, the Republic of Slovenia has been a long-standing supporter of this initiative for over 10 years to adopt a new international treaty in the field of international cooperation and mutual legal assistance aimed at establishing interstate mechanisms for the investigation and prosecution of international crimes. This initiative, the MLA initiative, addresses the primary responsibility of states for the prosecution of international crimes and aims to improve efficiency of investigations and their prosecution at the national level. Representatives of the international community gathered at this conference to join efforts to adopt a new convention that will fill the existing legislation gap in the field of international legal assistance, which will significantly reinforce the global fight against impunity. I sincerely hope that the next 2 weeks will prove that despite its size, Slovenia is capable of hosting one of the most important international conferences, which represents an important achievement in improving and promoting the development of international criminal law. The conference is attended by 71 delegations from all over the world, as well as observer countries and representatives of the civil society. So I thank really all participants and also all the teams that were for the last weeks, months, and also years working on this gathering. And I'm extremely proud that our small country, with its strong diplomacy, proves again and again how it can successfully build bridges and promote close cooperation of the entire international community. So thank you all.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Minister of Justice of the Republic of Slovenia.
Hvala za besedo. Dober dan, vsi prisotni predstavniki medijev in vsi ostali gostje. Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome and thank you for your presence at this opening of a final but really crucial phase of a very important process leading, hopefully, towards the adoption of a new multilateral convention in the field of criminal justice cooperation. First such international convention since the Rome Statute was adopted in 1998. And like the foreign minister, my dear colleague Tanja Fajon said, Slovenia is extremely proud both to be part of the core states, the initiators of this new future convention, as well as, of course, to be a host of the final stage of the negotiating diplomatic convention. It's a great honor, and we are very happy to have all the delegations and guests here. Genocide, war crimes, and crimes against humanity are not merely accidental side effects of wars, but rather they are a result of conscious decisions of military and political leaders. These atrocities are not just morally abhorrent, they constitute the most heinous of international crimes. It is therefore our common, our shared obligation as individual states primarily, and also as international community as a whole, to do absolutely everything that is in our power, including through constructive and effective international cooperation, to investigate, prosecute, and punish those responsible, and to provide support and protection for victims and witnesses. To put it shortly, it is our absolute and unquestionable duty to do everything that we can to bring perpetrators to justice and justice to victims. With the increasingly global and geographically expansive displacement of refugees, the high risk of prompt destruction of evidence, and with perpetrators fleeing to all corners of the world, particularly to those where they know they can count on finding shelter, it is indeed international cooperation of law enforcement and judicial authorities, such as through exchange of information and evidence, that is quintessential for the proper and effective administration of criminal justice. In this context, we must not forget that it is another important duty of ours to grant special care and attention to victims and their family, especially to those most vulnerable, such as elderly, women, and children. As it was said before many times today, during the next 2 weeks, this conference will address such and many other pressing issues, and together with the foreign minister, I'm also confident that we will be able to streamline and harmonize our views, and that will lead to a successful conclusion of this conference and the adoption of this new multilateral convention. The convention, as the MLA initiative on which it is based, is premised on one of the most fundamental principles of international criminal law. That is the principle that national states are primarily responsible for prosecution of international crime. That is, that the responsibility for prosecution lies primarily within the national criminal justice systems. But the convention or the initiative also focuses on the measures designed to improve the effectiveness of investigation and prosecution of this crime at the national level through international cooperation, through mutual legal assistance and exchange of evidence, and of course the extradition mechanisms. So I'm pleased to observe that so many of the delegations present today at this conference and for the next 2 weeks share Slovenia's views on the importance of this process and the objectives we pursue, and that we share the fundamental principles underlying this convention, which is a huge step for the entire international criminal law society, community that has only been developing for the past few decades. So, without further ado, let me once again thank also on the behalf of the Ministry of Justice to all the delegates, all the guests, distinguished speakers at this conference. I wish everyone most success in the negotiations or discussion phase, and hopefully we will achieve our common aim. Another convention, a building block towards a world where impunity will no longer be an option. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Minister of Foreign Affairs, European Affairs and Foreign Trade of the Kingdom of Belgium. Please.
Thank you very much. Dear journalists, ladies and gentlemen, I'm really honored to be here today and to speak with you about the importance of the MLA initiative. Belgium has always been a staunch advocate for combating impunity, for defending the rule of law and an impartial and independent judicial system. We have always supported the International Criminal Court since it started its activity more than 20 years ago, and recently contributed voluntary €1 million to its general funds. I'm deeply convinced, as stated in the Rome Statute, that combating impunity is a primary responsibility of all states, as the most serious crimes have consequences for the entire international community. It is therefore essential that states work together to investigate these crimes and prosecute their perpetrators. That is why my country is one of the core group members, one of the founding members of this MLA initiative, which is a response to this need for interstate cooperation. The Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court recalls the duty of each state to exercise its criminal jurisdiction over those responsible for these crimes. The MLA initiative will enable states parties to the future convention to effectively discharge their primary responsibility, which is to investigate these crimes and prosecute their perpetrators at the national level. In other words, it will encourage states to take more ownership of the investigation and prosecution of these crimes rather than relying solely on the ICC. It is important also to emphasize that a cooperation between national jurisdiction organized by the future MLA is not intended to compete with the ICC. This convention, by the way, is completely complementary to the Rome Statute, and the two systems will operate in parallel and in full synergy. Ultimately, accountability is key to creating a world where every individual is able to live in peace, safety, and dignity. So let us all work together to promote accountability and uphold justice in order to create better societies and a better world. Thank you very much.
Many thanks. The next speaker is Minister of Foreign Affairs of Mongolia, please.
Thank you, dear representatives of media and journalists. Good afternoon. I'm very happy to see you here. First of all, I would like to congratulate the government of Slovenia for hosting this diplomatic conference successfully. As a member of core group, Mongolia supports the MLA initiative from the beginning because we assume that the MLA convention is crucial for filling the existing gap in the international criminal law by establishing a modern operational framework for effective interstate cooperation and the investigation and prosecution on the most heinous crimes. Taking this opportunity, I would like to express my appreciation to the 80 supporting states of the initiative. I'm confident the draft of the convention shall be adopted by consensus. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Minister of Justice and Security of the Kingdom of Netherlands is our next speaker.
Thank you. Is it on? Yeah. Thank you so much. So, for the Netherlands, accountability for those who commit the core international crimes forms a key part of the international legal order. We see it as our duty to ensure that there is no impunity for these crimes. Yazidis who have been kept as slaves, Ukrainian citizens who have been brutally targeted, and all other victims deserve that the perpetrators of these crimes are brought to justice. Promoting and developing the international legal order is of the utmost importance to us, so much so that it's enshrined in the Dutch constitution. The Netherlands actively participates in the fight against impunity for these crimes through our specialized teams within our police and public prosecution office, but also by serving as a proud host state for many international courts and tribunals. The MLA initiative and the convention that we hope to conclude here in Slovenia would further assist us in this very important task. Therefore, the Netherlands, together with Slovenia and other core group members, launched this initiative many years ago. And I am thrilled to be joining all my esteemed colleagues here today as the start of these very important negotiations. As the investigation and prosecution of the core international crimes fall primarily under the responsibility of states, effective cooperation among states is essential to successfully prosecute these atrocious crimes in domestic courts. It has been concluded by practitioners and legal experts from all around the world that the current international legal framework for mutual legal assistance and extradition for the most serious international crimes is incomplete and outdated. This seriously hampers the ability of states to cooperate effectively in the fight against impunity. Bilateral agreements, of course, have their strengths, but these crimes concern the international community as a whole, which warrants a modern multilateral framework for all states to use. So therefore, we hope to conclude a modern procedural multilateral treaty on mutual legal assistance and extradition in the coming weeks, which will facilitate better practical cooperation between states investigating and prosecuting these crimes. This diplomatic conference is a testament to the commitment of the international community to strengthen cooperation in the fight against impunity. And I am very confident that the negotiations will result in the adoption of a multilateral instrument that will provide our law enforcement authorities with an effective and efficient tool in the fight against impunity. And I believe that our plan is also to make sure that next year in The Hague, in the Peace Palace, we will sign and seal this treaty. So I'm very much looking forward to that as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Vice Minister, Secretary of Foreign Affairs of the Argentine Republic. Mr. Ambassador, please.
Good afternoon. I'm also very proud to be here. I'm proud indeed because the job that the core group has been developing, I believe, is crucial for the international community as a whole. I had the occasion to remind people that in Argentina we are celebrating 40 years of democracy. This came at a time when Argentina decided that we had to take action against what has been the more cruel military dictatorship they went through, and that was because we made mistakes ourselves and we violated human rights in Argentina, and it was done by Argentinians. The responsibles for that of the military government were brought to the tribunals that already existed before that happened, and they were judged with laws that were there before they were judged. So what changed was the culture of the country that saw that same legislation, which allowed the support for what the judges could be doing to come to place. What was that? Have the witnesses, have the courage to go up and say what had happened, have the elements that could prove what had happened, to have all the investigations go on the basis of what is supposed to be happening. So the convention, to bring it down to earth, is not simply an agreement that would have people who sign it feel comfortable with ourselves. It is what we're looking forward is to have a real change in the way we generate cooperations amongst us. The MLA Convention is going to fill in a gap, as many presenters before said, in which we hope that all the people who are involved in these investigations can really do their jobs to all the extent possible. And not only impunity, the end objective of all of this is that these kinds of crimes don't happen anymore. And one way of doing that is knowing that people cannot run away with impunity. They will be judged, and there will be cooperations amongst countries that will implement through these legislations what is supposed to be happening. Not something that we don't know about, not something we're not familiar with the legislation that we have and the courts that we have. So it is the culture of the whole international community that we hope will have this impetus through this convention. So this is our commitment, and this is what we hope for this meeting here. We're very grateful to Slovenia for having organized it, and we hope that we'll be able to reach an agreement by consensus on this convention during these meetings. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I invite the President of the conference for her address.
I thank you. I have to say that I'm deeply honored to have been appointed president of this very important conference. It is a huge honor, and it is a huge responsibility as well, as I will be responsible for conducting a process, a very hectic process of 2 weeks in order to adopt at the end this very important convention. The negotiations have started, the discussions have started today. I think we have had a very good initial date to receive general comments, but tomorrow we'll start indeed going into the details of this convention in plenary sessions and in working groups. Now, I am confident that we will adopt this convention at the end of these 2 weeks. We will need to work very hard because it is a very technical convention that requires a lot of attention for every article, but I'm confident that we will succeed at the end. And why is this important? Well, first of all, and I will be very brief, lots of this has already been said, so let me simply emphasize. It is important because there is a gap. There is no multilateral framework for to enhance cooperation for these type of crimes currently. There are frameworks for other type of crimes. There are multilateral conventions for corruption. There is a multilateral convention for organized transnational crime, but there is nothing for the crimes that are the most serious crimes of international concern: genocide, war crimes, crimes against humanity, and other international crimes that may also be covered by this convention. So this convention needs to be adopted because it will provide a practical toolkit for investigations and prosecutions at the national level. It is a very practical step in order to fight impunity for these crimes. Now, so there is a gap, that's why this convention is important, and also it is important because we see that despite efforts of the last 3 decades, I would say, to ensure justice for these type of crimes by national, international, and hybrid tribunals, we see that these type of crimes continue to be committed in various parts of the world. So we do need to increase our efforts to make sure that we ensure individual accountability for this type of crimes. So, and the good news, I would say, within these tragic events that we see around the world is that we also see that there are more efforts at the national level to investigate and prosecute these type of crimes. We see these efforts in Europe, but also in other parts of the world, where we have judges and prosecutors investigating and conducting proceedings for crimes committed of this type in other parts of the world. So regardless of where these crimes are committed, these investigators, these judges need cooperation. These type of crimes are massive by nature, most of them. So they are likely to have hundreds of perpetrators, thousands of victims. So, and the evidence may be distributed in various parts of the world. So national investigators and prosecutors, they really need this cooperation in order to ensure to do their work. So that's why this is important, and that's why I'm convinced, with all the support that we have from 80 countries, that have already supported the initiative and others that are joining now as observers, I'm sure that they will be able to adopt this convention. I thank you.
Thank you, and our last speaker is Secretary General of the conference, so can I ask you for a few words as well?
Thank you. As the Secretary General of the conference, I'm really proud that today we have successfully opened the diplomatic conference for the adoption of the Convention on International Cooperation, Investigation and Prosecution of core international crimes. This was a joint effort of 6 states covering all continents, and we were preparing for this convention for more than 10 years. It's a huge effort, and we are thankful that 80 states have supported us in this process. 71 states from all continents around the world traveled to Ljubljana for 2 weeks to negotiate the new convention, and we would really like to thank them for that. It's really important that they are present and that we jointly pursue the goal to adopt the new convention. Also 7 international organizations, including Special Advisor to the UN Secretary General for the responsibility to protect participates, then 13 civil society organizations, because the voice of the civil society is equally important in this process. So to underline, it's really the huge diplomatic effort and extremely important milestone for international law, since not many treaties are being successfully negotiated in the last few years. So if we will succeed, and I'm convinced that we will, in the next 2 weeks, then we will have in front of us the second most important instrument treaty on international criminal justice after the Rome Statute, which was negotiated 25 years ago. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm opening now floor for the questions, so please identify yourself and also the person you're directing the question to. Okay, here. Yeah, I don't know where the microphone is. Okay, I'll give you mine then.
Torej, Marta Razboršek, TV Slovenija. Zanima me v bistvu, kaj je glavni problem v pogajanjih. What's the main problem in negotiations, maybe for you?
I thank you. We will see tomorrow what are the main problems, but already, of course, we will need to agree on the scope of the convention, that is, which are exactly the crimes that are going to be covered by this convention. There is an agreement that, of course, the convention will cover genocide, war crimes, and crimes against humanity, but we also need to deal with other crimes that may be also added to the convention, either as a mandatory or optional basis. And right now, in the draft, there is an optional scope on the crime of aggression, on torture, enforced disappearance, and some amendments to war crimes that are already contained, that are amendments to the Rome Statute. So this was going to be one of the issues that need to be discussed. Also, we need to discuss whether definitions of the crimes will or will not be included in the convention itself. And of course, then you have very detailed forms of assistance, mutual legal assistance, and articles on extradition and transfer, which are very technical. So some of them may be more controversial than others, but the main challenge, I would say, is to go in detail through all these very detailed forms of cooperation, because this convention is indeed very important and very interesting because it does have a very detailed framework for cooperation.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Valentin Bartels, De Telegraaf. Two of the biggest and most important countries, China and Russia, do not participate. Why not? And what is a convention worth without those countries?
I thank you for your question. I think, well, of course, they would need to, this question would need to be addressed to them. So I'm not going to be second-guessing why they do not want to participate. But I would say that this convention has support at this point, formal support declared already by 80 states, which is quite an impressive number, plus others that are here to observe and to maybe join later on. Maybe those who have not supported will ratify once it's adopted. But I think the number of states that are already supporting this framework makes it extremely important, because it means that, and we have a representation of all regions of the world, which is also extremely important, because we need cooperation within regions and across regions. So I think that is already guaranteed in the current support that we have received in this convention. And I do hope that others will join after this is adopted.
Thank you. This is a really important question, and it's usually a question that comes to mind with all international mechanisms, particularly those in the area of international criminal justice. Those are the questions that pop up when we talk about the jurisdiction of the ICC, and otherwise the questions that popped up with the issuance of the arrest warrant by the ICC for President Putin and his allies. One thing I would like to point out, of course, as the president of the conference said, it is a question that should be directed to those countries who undermine the common efforts of why they don't want to support prosecution and investigations of those who commit morally and ethically the most abhorrent crimes that humanity can imagine. But even if they don't join, either now or later, we must not lose our motivation and belief for endeavors such as this convention, because every gap we close means less space for perpetrators of such crimes. And mind you, those are not just military leaders and soldiers, they involve the highest political leaders as well. They close the gaps for those perpetrators to have less and less space to hide and to evade justice. And that is why we cannot ever lose our motivation or just simply give up because some of the most important states, and those states commit those crimes on a very regular level throughout history, are undermining those efforts. We are stronger, we are more in numbers, and we will prevail.
Thank you. Any further questions? No. Okay, then thank you very much, everybody.
Very welcome. It's very good.
Nisem dojela, da ni drugega mikrofona, sorry.